Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to NALC tonight. I am Phreak. That is Azael. This man in the middle here is Kobe.
That's true.
How y'all doing?
8.5 out of 10.
That's solid. That's a good one.
I'm going to go, 8.4.
8.4?
Okay.
I'm going to go 8. I'm going to
Price
go
is writing, yeah.
Price is writing you.
I mean, that's a really bad Price is writing, though. You're only down by 0.1. 8.51. I automatically win as long as we're doing better than this one. Welcome, of course, NALC
Let's tear
tonight.
him down. We got to bring it
Yeah,
back
yeah,
down.
Good luck with that one, but it's only going up from here. I'm feeling good about myself. Let's talk about some really cool stuff that happened today and yesterday in League of Legends and NALCS. A lot of upsets.
Yes.
A lot of upsets.
The upsets were definitely huge this weekend, and a lot of them, the theme for me seemed to be a lot of these hard engaged compositions. They comboed very well multiple different forms of engagement. Like, it felt like a lot of these teams where people had them as the underdogs because of player-to-player matchups, relied on synergy, and they're like, okay, if we have Camille plus Galio, plus Orianna, plus Shen, plus Rakan, like all these different forms, they were able to bring those together for these, hard-forcing fights that we're seeing here.
And one of the parts I really like about comps like this for teams that are maybe struggling or maybe are the underdogs a little bit is how much it simplifies your game plan, right? You don't have to play this necessarily extremely complicated, multifaceted split push macro style game. It turns out if you just do a really nice engage with Rakan and Galio, you can win the team fight and win the game, right? And I think drafting for clear win conditions like that is just really intelligent when you're struggling.
So, question to you then. Is it not just the right way to play League of Legends? If you're like, oh, let's just draft this narrow win condition, but we're so good we'll hit that timing. Like, why not just play team fight all the time? If a weak team is a good team, then a good team sure is going to beat a good team.
And my argument against that would just simply be that sometimes if you're playing against teams that are prepared well enough and are handling it, they will never give you those team fights. And then those compositions, you talk about a narrow win condition. I think if the only way is finding that hard engage and the team is warding properly and controlling the map and never giving it to you, then that's how you sometimes see those games where it's like you're in your base and you're down 10K and you haven't ever fought yet.
Also, I would say that right now, I think that split pushing is definitely viable. Like, teams trying to 1-3-1. Yeah. We have seen a lot of those kind of fall prey to these hard engage comps because a lot of the teams have been very outspoken about troubling communication issues.
Sure.
Because of the off-season roster swap, where there's a lot of talent in the North American LCS now with everybody importing and the teams all trading, but they were all moved around. So a lot of people are trying to get used to other people's voices and other people's views of the game.
It'd also be interesting to me to see if there's any more meta adaptations to kind of answer this, right? If you're going to go for hard engage, if it's going to be about you trying to split push, well, have a Janna with your three-man squad and stuff like that, or a Lowy, right? Like waste either counter engage or disengage when they do try to go for that, enables your split pushers to kind of take over the map.
Sure, and we saw some of that attempted and fail. Of course, CLG went with the the Fiora mid and then split pushed against Gangplank. There were some fun things there, but yeah. So we'll see what strategies look like in the future. I want to move on to a team that impressed a lot this week in FlyQuest specifically. Fly came into the mid lane, looked really good overall. I mean, they got a win. They looked really close in the next one as well, and I think they shoot right up the standings. And you got to start buying some stock in these guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're definitely happy to have him here for their LCS games. They talked about that a little bit. They also were one of the first ones to use one of these super hard engaged comps with Galio in combination, with the Rakan engagement. And they were actually, if you watch them during the Champ Select, started laughing when they got the Galio after second round of ban phase because they already had so much of what they wanted, and it played into their game plan so well. So the preparation, in addition, to having Fly there finally now and having the synergy for these guys, I think all those things really came out this weekend.
And I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with the support situation going on there, right? Because they did try 2 different supports this week. Right. Stunt, I thought yesterday had an incredible performance. He was player of the game, had some fantastic Rakan engages, but it was preset that they were going to swap games this week. And it'll be interesting to see where they land because Stunt, to me, has performed very well overall in his time in the NALCS, even with Phoenix 1. But even back then, they decided to go with Shady over him. So, is that going to happen again? We'll have to find out.
All right, let's move on a little bit on the conversation as we talk about FlyQuest getting better and better as a team. Move on to the Twitter section of this one. Jake Benson asks, now that we are coming to the halfway point of the split, who do you predict will make playoffs? So who's your top 6? And I guess Kobe will start. Actually, I already prepped this question, so if you guys want to wait, I'll put in my teams and you guys can come in afterwards. I think C9, TL, Echo Fox, the top 3 is a shoe-in. I think they're in for everyone who talks about this, automatically top 3. I'm going to go ahead and add TSM, Clutch, and FlyQuest to that list, or the ones below them that make the top 6. Which means I say 100
So you're
Thieves
skipping
and CLG
100
drop
Thieves.
down.
Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, I think everyone's going to agree with the top 3. I definitely think TSM is on the up and up. I still see them certainly making the playoffs. I think the last 2 are actually very hard to call because, I mean, if you look between 4th and 8th, there's a 1-game difference, right? Like a lot of these teams can go up and down. 100 Thieves certainly seems like they're on a downtrend. FlyQuest has certainly showed some promise, but I do still have faith, I think, in CLG to pull things together a little bit towards the end of the season, and them not making playoffs at all would be a pretty huge disappointment.
Yeah,
Sorry, just real quick. Is TSM, CLG, and who's your third under the top 3?
I think I would probably have Clutch.
Clutch is your number 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or those not necessarily in order, but
so you're saying 100 Thieves down and like Optic out
and FlyQuest probably
out.
not in. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically narrowing this question down to
3 of the next 6.
100 Thieves, Clutch, FlyQuest, and CLG. Choose 2.
I guess
to get in.
I mean, maybe Optic makes it up too, right? Like as of yesterday, it looked like they might, go for it because they took down CLG. And it's like, okay, maybe that stock rises.
And because the top 3 teams have been so dominant, have so many more wins than the others, like there's such a small gap. So even though Optic is in, 8th or 9th or whatever, they're 2 wins behind the 4th place team, right? So things can definitely change pretty quickly, and that has been very exciting because, especially looking back at last week, where this week I think was the week of upsets. Last week was basically everything going according to plan. All the higher seeds were winning. It was looking very dominant, and I was like, oh, well, maybe it's kind of settled. Maybe this is just how it is now. But again, we're back to the situation where teams are either A, inconsistent, or there's just this much parity in the league.
As a real minor question, what are the chances that actually Golden Guardians comes up and makes like 6th at their 1-7 record? What are the odds you're going to get?
I mean, it's pretty low, but it's definitely better after today because they showed a lot of promise. But I think it's still maybe
not a favorite.
Yeah, definitely not a favorite. Maybe like 12, 13%.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna give it less, like 5%. I think that they're starting quite behind, and they've struggled so heavily in lanes that to me, like the promising part has been mostly about their team fighting, and sometimes their coordination can look good in the mid game. But if you always dig yourselves into a hole before you get there, or you throw it away when you do, I don't know, it's hard.
All right, Price is Right. I'll go $1 on this one, and if it's anything below, then I get to win this one. Next tweet: Angry Man asks, "Can you explain why solo laners are taking Relic Shield at the start of the game?"
Yeah, it's because Relic Shield allows you to start with 3 health potions. That's part of it, so you can take it into lanes where you want a lot more sustain. It also is because the Relic Shield was buffed to have the Bandit passive on it, so that's why you're seeing mainly Gangplank is a huge abuser of that, and the other champions that like to get those autos off. Fiora in mid lane, when we saw him in a double melee matchup, also went with that. So it's a combination of buffing the Relic Shield for with that extra gold generation as well as just all the health that you're going to get from the item and from the potions.
Exactly. I mean, the base GB10 is obviously a nice addition there, but you're just thinking about how do you maximize sustain, especially to me, it's about like hyper-scaling champions. When you talk about GP and Fiora, if you survive early game, doesn't matter if you're trying to kill them. If you're going even, you're like, oh, you're winning this lane, right? And this just gives you a tremendous amount of sustain, especially in combination with Biscuit Delivery that a lot of GPs are taking now too, so you can often have 4 or 5 potions before you even base.
But for solo queue, you can tell your jungler, hey, I've got a couple relic stacks here.
Kobe just wants the gold.
Come gank for me. I'll give you a cannon execution.
They'll just smite your cannon and be like, nah, thanks to mine, dog.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. Well,
don't trust him, because Kobe also told me if I give him the relic stacks, he's going to tax the rest of the wave.
Yeah.
So beware. If Kobe is in your games, don't give him anything.
Don't give him any ganks. All right, next up, Eric Pigeon asks, what would be a better way to help teams end games? Buff Baron, buff Super Minions, what do you think?
Any of those endgame objectives would clearly help, teams' endgames. There's multiple things. The most obvious ones are buffing Baron to make it stronger, or Elder Dragon, or reducing the defenses of towers later on. Making inhib respawns longer, buffing super minions. Any of those endgame mechanics that are already in there, just tweaking those to make them stronger. I think the more kind of intricate level to do it would be trying to open up space in the meta to make split pushing strategies maybe stronger. I actually was talking a lot about burst damage. If burst damage is more prevalent, I feel like games end quicker. Because those you can snowball very quickly. But yeah, those are just kind of off the top of the head.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of ways to do it. I mean, you can look at like scaling minions to be tougher to wave clear in the later stages of the game. If they're staying up longer, it's easier to siege. You can obviously look at items like Zerod and Banner, which could theoretically help you to end the game. There's lots of different levers to pull, but it'll be interesting to see which of those are going to be used.
Yeah, I'll take a two-parter here. I agree with you that like any of the end game mechanics, such as Barons, especially like later on, whatever, like my initial thought was like, oh, Baron respawns like 6 minutes, like Elder Dragon's 8 minutes, something like that. So it happens more often. You're fighting around it. I'd also like to see less vision in the game so that you can get ganks off more frequently. I know Mark Z did a Blame Game episode about like tracking Acadian, and he's like, oh look, he's on a ward, and 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 he can't gank because I see him literally his entire jungle path. So things to look out for. Let's move on though. We have next week's games coming up, and we'll bring the schedule up so we can talk about what we're excited about coming up on Saturday. You can see that set of games up on your screen right there. I know the analysts talked about it a little bit, but what here speaks to all of you?
And honestly, there's a lot of good games. I think the three at the top of the day are all going to be pretty exciting, and teams especially that are kind of fighting for those playoff spots. I think CLG is going to be a good one, and TSM C9 with TSM looking better more recently, I think could be a really good challenge for TSM because yes, they have won some games, but are they on the level of Cloud9 yet? Cloud9 has been looking kind of a cut above most of the teams in the league.
Yeah, those two stories you touched on, I'm super curious to find out, kind of the next chapter there, as Cloud9 have been dominating and TSM, trying to reclaim what they feel is like their rightful spot, at the top of the North American LCS. But even the next game, the Clutch Gaming versus FlyQuest, those are two of the teams in that kind of pack of four we were talking about as playoff contenders and who's going to knock the other one down. If you're able to take a victory off of your direct competition for that playoff spot, then it's kind of a 2-for-1.
And then, of course, the most exciting of all will be Game 5, where Kobe will be with Sven and Missy
Sunday.
On the lounge on Sunday.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. So join them. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, I also agree. My game of Saturday is Clutch versus Fly. I think it's super important. Clutch up to a 2-0 week. They're at a
no one asked you, Phreak.
I asked me. I'm the host. I get to determine what happens. If we can turn off Azael's mic, that would be great. We need to hear him anymore. I have no more cards to read, so if you don't have anything else to say, then we're done here.
You read everything off of your cards?
Yep. What you want? Here,
Scripted.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to try? Ask me some smart questions, Kobe.
Yeah, he says, Kobe is the best caster I have ever worked with.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, those are my notes.
That's really nice of you.
I got you, man.
Good night, everybody. Hope you tune in next week as well.
It's time that these teams start making some statements.
Yeah, we're into the meat of